Marco Severino here at Flow Design Architects, one of the principals. We're going to continue today to discuss our video series, zoning requirements. In this class, we're going to focus in the high restrictions. As you already know, if you follow the videos that we already have showing YouTube, we went into detail to talk about zoning districts, setbacks, FAR or floor area ratio, and lot coverage, and the difference between FAR and the lot coverage. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just refer to the video that we previously recorded just to get a little bit more sense of where we are within this series. So let's jump into the high restrictions. Something that we always get questions when we meet clients is how high can I go within my district? And that's something that we always like to express to the clients, like, let's go into the zoning requirements and see in which district you are located. Because, for example, if you are in an area in Lynn, Massachusetts, where you are, let's say, in R1 or residential district 1, might be different than if you are in a let's say a commercial district or C1 or B1, because it depends. So the scale of the buildings are different based on the district that you are located. So it's very important that you always refer to your zoning district, in which zoning you are located, in order to find the information about high restrictions. Very, very important. So I recommend clients to always go back to your zoning district to understand what your limitations are. So after you locate in which district you are located, they are going to specify, oh, it is 25 feet high max, or it is 35 feet, or 50 feet, 60 feet, etc. So it's important for you to understand that relationship and how high you can go within your district. So after you understand how high you can go, then it's very important that you look into your zoning bylaws to understand the difference between height and stories. That's very, very important, because what happens is you might have a height max of 35 feet, but the stories might be completely different. It might be 2.5 stories max. It might be 3 stories max. So now let's go deep into what that means in terms of you as a developer or somebody who buy this house and are trying to understand, like, okay, how can I increase the height of my house? Let's say you have a 1-level house, for example. I don't know if you can see my text, but let's say, you have a first floor. This you cannot really see it. Let's say this is your first floor, and then you have an unfinished attic. And let's say this space is about, let's say, 15 feet. 15 feet from the ground. But you are located in a district that is 2.5 stories max. What that means is that you can have a first floor, a second floor, in an attic space. And typically the 0.5, what that means is that the attic space, let's say you have 1,000 square feet. Let's say you have 1,000 square feet on the second floor. So let's say this is the second floor. The 0.5, what that means is that the attic, you can only finish, and when we mean about finished space, we're talking about spaces that are conditioned, meaning like you have, let's say, a family room, or you have like a bathroom. Those spaces are not included. You need to look into your zoning, but storage areas are not included into finished space. So always go back to your zoning requirement to understand what you can actually do within that space. But going back to it, so if you are on the second floor and your second floor is, let's say, 1,000 square feet, If your requirement is that the max story is 2.5 stories, so that means the attic space, you can only finish 500 square feet of that, which is zero point 0.5. Let's say this is 0.5 stories. So that's what that means. So it's important for you to understand the height relationship and what your requirements are in terms of stories and height. So going back to this example, if your house is a single home and you have 1.5 stories, that means that you can easily go into another story and add an attic, similar to we're showing in this diagram. So very important for you to really look into this, because this relationship of height and stories, they correlate. So some cities like, and they specifically said 35 feet, but they don't tell you the stories. What that means is that if you go back, let's say you have a 35 feet limit. If this is 35 feet, you could potentially subdivide this building in, let's say each floor, it's, let's say 9 feet. 9 feet. Of course, I'm just showing lines, but you know the floor assembly might vary depending on your construction type. So let's say 9 feet, 9 feet, that's 18. 9 feet, so 18. So let's say the floor assembly is a foot. So you will be 10 feet, 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet. And then let's say you decide to go with a gable roof for the remaining to give you that 35 feet. So in other words, you have 1, 2, 3.5 stories. If in your district they don't specify the amount of stories that are allowed, it's very important for you to kind of get a sense of also what your neighborhood is telling you. Sometimes your district might tell you, your max is 35 feet. But if you look around your neighborhood and all your houses are, let's say, 25 feet, most likely it's better if you actually look at what the neighborhood feels like, in order for people to kind of don't feel disturbed with what you are trying to do in the future. So very important that you pay attention to the height and how it relates to your stories. Requirements, because they as I mentioned before, they actually correlate to each other. So very, very important. Another thing I do want to mention about height restrictions is that it's very different depending the lot that that your building is located at. And you always need to go into your zoning bylaws in order to understand what those limitations are. So for example, if you have a flat, a considerably flat site, like in this case, like that line just represent that your lot is flat. The height limitations might be very different than if you are in a slope site. So this is where the concept of stories and law kind of mirror each other. So let's say you are you have a walkout basement. Let's say this is your basement, and this is your first floor, and this is your attic. Let's say that's the case. And the max height, let's say, is 35 feet. Now, when the zoning bylaws specify of height, they're referring from the ground level into the highest point of your building, typically the ridge of the roof. But in a case where a side of your lot is higher than the other, the rule of thumb is that you take half of the height between the highest point and the lowest point. So let's say in this case, if this relationship is Let's say this relationship is 10 feet. So you will get the middle ground, which is 5 feet, 5 feet, and 5 feet. And you will start your height from the middle point of that. So in this case, let's say this is 10 feet, this is 5 feet, and let's say the relationship of that, 5 feet, and let's say it's 2 more feet from the ground, so let's say 7 feet. What that means is that your actual height for your building, it's not, let's say this is 2 feet, it's not from here. This is not your right height. It's actually from the center line of what we just discussed previously. So if you add up, that's 5, 15, 22 feet. 22, that's your actual height versus 12, 17 versus 17 feet. You can see the difference here because if you are in a lot where it slopes and you argue with the building inspector and you are like, oh no, my house is only 17 feet from the ground, but then the building inspector will tell you, wait, remember that you are in a slope and you have a walkout basement outside. So your height is actually to the center of the highest point and the lowest point within your lot. So these ones are pretty basic items for you to kind of understand and get aware of where your lot is located, how your lot is, your building is placed within your lot, and the relationship of how that connects with your requirements with the height and stories. So I hope this video is helpful. Any questions, feel free to follow up the previous videos so you can get a sense of the other items that we discussed, and we will see you in the next one. Thank you.